everybody, and welcome back to the P1, or should we call it Max Verstappen podcast with Matt and Tommy. We are here once again, post Austrian Grand Prix, or should we call it the Track Limits Grand Prix? Should we call it the Snitching Grand Prix? There's plenty of names that we could call it, isn't there, Tommy?
There is. I just realised that I can actually wave in the intro this time because it will be on the video. Hello.
Well done. You're not just waving to me, you're waving to all our wonderful listeners and watchers. So let's start with our 5-star review, which of course we do every single time on audio. And if you want yours to be read out, please leave us a 5-star review. Let us know why. It helps us massively. This one comes in from Samuel Henson from the UK. I started to watch Formula One from a young age with my father, but I wasn't very interested in it. In 2021, I found Matt and Tommy with their podcast adventures and fell in love with the sport. I now listen to them day and night. Whenever I haven't been able to watch a race, I will always listen to their race reviews to know exactly what has happened that day. Love to see how far they've come and what they will do in the future. Best of luck. Well, thank you, Samuel.
Thank you.
You're listening to us day and night. I'm so sorry.
Wow. Never stops.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sick of Tommy. I can't imagine how much you're sick of.
Constant waffle in the ears.
It's too much waffle, too much. Okay, so let's talk about the Austrian Grand Prix, shall we? And begin with my most memorable moment. No surprises, as much as some people don't seem to get the fact that I wear Red Bull merch in order to jinx them, not because I've now actively started supporting them. I don't know why you wear Ferrari personally, Tommy, because you're not trying to jinx them because they do enough jinxing themselves.
No, I'm just here to gas up Carlos Sainz.
Yeah, you've all of a sudden, very strangely, just become a Carlos Sainz stan, which is fine. But my most memorable moment is Leclerc back on the podium, and not even P3. Have a P2, sir. That's what we love to see. And look, it was never guaranteed, even though he was on the front row, that he would score a podium, score P2, like it was last year. He would lose the lead to Verstappen a lot of the time, but he would still finish on the podium. We fast forward a year, and it's struggle town. It's struggle city. We don't know whether it's going to be Aston, Mercedes, Ferrari that are that second fastest team. Baku, of course, we saw Leclerc on the podium. And once again, we have Leclerc on the podium for only the second time this year, which I'm smiling through the pain with that one. But Ferrari, as much as they had absolutely nothing in the locker to take to Red Bull, they were the second fastest team.
Yeah, they were. Leclerc had a good race. It is funny, like you say, I didn't even think about that last year, a lot of the races, Leclerc couldn't take the fight to Verstappen and it was like a disappointment. But now you're like absolutely taking it because there we say P2 is essentially first place, is now Formula 1.5, is now finishing second behind Max Verstappen. It was a good performance from Leclerc and good to see Ferrari back. Good stuff.
How dare you? Like you're just so cocky with your Max Verstappen, fanboyism that you can just take the mickey out of everyone else and all of our pain. Like, how many times do I have to see over the last couple of years Max Verstappen passing Charles Leclerc for the lead? Like, it is getting ridiculous now. However, we did actually have someone lead the race other than Max Verstappen for, I think, a whopping 5 laps, which I savoured.
Yeah, I know. Again, you going like, oh, it's painful to see Max pass someone from the lead. It's actually the most the closest it's ever been to actually see Max have to overtake someone to take the lead, even though
since Miami,
it wasn't really in doubt, was it? The way Ferrari had the pit stops and stuff and the way it panned out. But nevertheless, a point for Tommy. We love to see it.
A point for you?
Yeah,
for the laps. Look, let's not ruin it. You're ruining it, Tommy. That's later. Good Lord. Right. We need to go by the schedule.
Yeah.
And your next thing is your most memorable moment. God, you had to jump the gun, didn't you?
I know. I'm just too happy about getting points because I never do. So my most memorable moment is also a Ferrari driver, and it's the battle between Carlos Sainz and Sergio Perez. There was a lot of nice battling during the race, actually. Not really mentioned it at the start of the podcast, so I will just say I thought it was actually pretty good race for this season, which I know the standard isn't very high, but there was a lot of nice battles throughout the midfield, a lot of passing, and really enjoyed it. But the one that stood out to me was the Sainz and Perez battle, because we all know that Red Bull, and we saw it with Verstappen, he breezed past everyone. Even Perez really did breeze past everyone in the pack that he was, when he was passing. But Sainz really did school him with a bit of very clever driving, where he knew where the DRS line was. We've seen it before, particularly with Leclerc and Verstappen, where they play a bit of DRS chicken with each other. And it was really good to see. And I can't believe Perez fell for it twice, to be honest, in a row. But it was really good driving from Sainz, and it felt inevitable that Perez was going to just breeze past him. So it was really cool to see a bit of battling. And look, would Perez have been able to catch up Charles? Probably not, but it certainly cemented it of there being any chance anyway. So great driving from Sainz, and it was a really enjoyable battle.
Yeah, Charles Leclerc had it absolutely in the locker, Tommy. There's no doubts about it. I can't believe you'd even suggest that Perez would have caught Leclerc 12 seconds at the end of the race behind Charles. So, But no, it was a great battle to watch Sainz and Perez. He almost fell for it a third time as well. I felt like into that hard braking zone of turn 3. Of course, the DRS line just before they kind of reached that hairpin. And he tried it, Sainz. On Verstappen, so did Leclerc, and Verstappen both times was like, absolutely not. And I'm just saying, I know that, naturally as a racer, you probably will learn this and make sure you adapt to it. But those kind of shenanigans you see more often in racing online and like sim racing. And I feel as though Verstappen and Leclerc, when they battled, it's because they do a lot of that stuff. They have that kind of mind about them. And so, it's interesting how Max didn't even fall for it once. He knew immediately what that Ferrari would try and do. And both times he nailed it, got the DRS, and then destroyed them down the straight into turn 4. So, but anyway, the battle was great. Thankfully, Perez was falling for it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had that battle. And apparently, Perez was very intimidating, according to Sainz.
No, but it's funny you mentioned that about the likes of Verstappen, Leclerc, you could say like Norris as well. Yeah, they do, jump on their sims in their spare time, and they live and breathe racing. And, maybe that is part of it, that they're always thinking about these things in the wheel-to-wheel battle, because it was, almost like video game stuff. So, it was a really, really good battle. Liked it.
Question from @Sahil_D_F1. Carlos is now driving at Leclerc's level. Well, I'm glad you've announced that. One could argue he was the better of the two this weekend, but the team put him on the back foot from the start rather than letting him make the pass and take a shot at Max. Why no team orders for Carlos when they do it for Charles? Right. I'm just gonna.
I put this one in just for you.
Posture in here. This is like a burner account for you, isn't it? I'm not having this. Okay, right. I will gladly admit Carlos has stepped up his game and has, probably over the last few races, been better than Charles Leclerc on the face of it. If we're looking at Austria in particular, again, he was really good in the sprint. Hands down, good stuff. This particular race, I don't think Carlos was any quicker than Charles Leclerc. I think they were on a good level, marginally different. Like they were two Ferrari drivers having a great time with their car. This track is a 1:10 lap in the race. With 3 DRS zones, you cannot escape a driver who is similar pace to you unless you make a mistake or whatnot. Carlos was driving well, all over the back of Leclerc, but there's 3 DRS zones. That is what made it look like Carlos was unbelievably quick compared to Charles, for those that maybe didn't think about that too much. There is no way in hell he was catching Max in any realm. So I just want to clear that up, because that's my opinion, is that, okay, Carlos might have had half a tenth on Charles, let's say, in the race, but he wasn't quick enough to overtake Charles on track. And if they had swapped, I am fully of the opinion that Charles, who also proved it later on in the race when he was in clean air compared to Carlos, that they were of similar pace, if not Charles was a little bit quicker at times. So that is my piece. Thank you.
Yeah, I can't sit here and say that he'd have a shot at Max, because Max was gone. Like, Max was untouchable this weekend, and the Red Bull is too fast, and Carlos was never going to catch him. He's obviously, going to be disappointed because he was told, don't pass it, hold the position now, and he was looking racy and looking like he was, he might have gone for a move. Maybe he'd have absolutely sent it with a dive bomb if it wasn't his teammate and is a little bit risky, like we said with Alonso and Stroll yesterday. But I think the problem is that, in my opinion, Carlos, I don't think there was anything to separate them, and they were just there, racing really, really close. And I think if Carlos had made the move on, or even they'd swapped, we'd have had exactly the same situation. I don't think Charles was faster that he'd have repassed Carlos. I think you'd have just had exactly the same thing where he'd been stuck on stuck like in the DRS the whole time. He'd have stuck with him, and then Charles would have probably gone on the radio and went, "Hey, I'm quicker. Can I get let through again?" And the one thing I would actually disagree is that I don't think it's fair to say that why no team orders for Carlos when they do it for Charles, because Charles is the one that normally has found himself, unfortunately, on that that bad side of it. They were told to maintain position, and that is probably a sensible thing, really. It was just, they were just very, 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 very unfortunate that there was a VSC, and they then obviously wanted to both pit together and did the worst double stack of all time. But we'll get into that later.
We will indeed. One more thing I'll say on this is that I actually wouldn't have been against, in order to at least satisfy Carlos's racy need, to swap them. Charles lifts off down, towards turn 3. Carlos has to go for 5 laps. We prove the theory that he cannot drive away from Charles, and then they swap back. I don't think that would have been too much of a problem. And the thing that I think also proves the theory of how powerful DRS is around this track is Lando Norris was quite a lot slower than Carlos Sainz when Carlos passed him straight out the pits. And yet Lando held on to DRS for dear life for quite a few laps. And there is quite a pace differential, I would say, this weekend between the Ferrari and the McLaren. There's definitely half a second, or I don't know, I'm just plucking numbers out of thin air here, but Ferrari was definitely the second fastest car. So that's kind of what I would say to back up that theory before you've potentially called me a fanboy in the comments. Next question. Pablo SF1. Why did Ferrari double box under the VSC? It seemed a bit too risky, and Sainz got absolutely shafted. Luckily, he had the pace to catch up that fast to Norris, Hamilton and Perez. I mean, I'm not particularly against what Ferrari did, because at the end of the day, they saw that as a time save of 8-10 seconds, something like that. I think it was around 17-18 seconds for a pit stop, and then I think it's an 8-second saving under the VSC. If they lost 4 seconds doing the double stack, they've still had a net gain of 4 seconds if they see that as a free pit stop, and that they would have been pitting not long after that anyway. So I'm not really going to have a go at that. I mean, the double stack was 4.5 seconds for the pair of them. So it wasn't like they were rushing, but I'm not too angry at the double box, just purely because the Ferrari is notoriously known for being worse on its tyres than the Red Bull. I don't think copying Verstappen's strategy would have been the right way. I think when we were watching it, we were going, oh, why didn't they split the strategy and at least try? But now, with the benefit of hindsight, I think, was there really anything to gain for them not trying to take advantage of the VSC?
Yeah, I think the thing here that Sainz got absolutely shafted from was the unfortunate case that you had to double stack. And that cost him a lot of time to Leclerc, because he had to obviously drop back, and then he had a slow pit stop as well.
And to be fair, sorry to butt in, Tommy, but that 4.5 second pit stop for Leclerc and also 4.5 second pit stop for Sainz, he's not missing out on Norris if those pit stops are normal. No, because the way it works is, they were obviously behind the VSC, so it wasn't like because Ferrari were actually quite unfortunate that I think they didn't box straight away because they missed it. Like, they couldn't react in time, and they'd already passed the pits and the guys behind them. But obviously, because it was a VSC, the Norris and Hamilton didn't get the advantage of new tyres because they're sticking to a delta. So when Sainz and Leclerc pitted, the way it panned out, it was borderline, but he would have made it probably ahead if it wasn't for the slow pit stop. And
my word, does that just sum up Ferrari in the pits, really? That the pit stops have actually been quite good this year, but just Ferrari doing Ferrari things of, right, double stack, this has to be properly, on it. Sainz is already on the back foot because he's had to leave a little gap. And normally when you leave a gap, you're at least blocking the people behind you, although apparently now you're not allowed to do that because Norris got that penalty, didn't he? But yeah, the fact that then he holds the gap and then still has to wait because Leclerc's had a slow pit stop, then you pit, then he has a slow pit stop. Sainz must have just been fuming at that point because he's already in his head obviously feels like he's quicker and he could have passed, and now he's getting a bit screwed as well. So yeah, Sainz had an unlucky race really when he was on Charles' pace this weekend, doing a really good job.
Yeah, but he did drive like a man possessed when he came out of the pits.
Some of his moves, his move on Lando was superb, by the way. Like Lando, the respect, you can tell those two are like really respectful drivers, obviously really good friends as well. And we've said so many times that corner at Austria going around the outside, we saw Albon, George Russell hit Perez and all that kind of stuff. We've seen that happen before. You have to have the cooperation of the other driver. And yeah, that move from Sainz on Norris, they were just giving each other just enough room that it was respectful, but really close racing. It was really good. I really like Austria. I think it's good track for racing.
It is decent. I think there was 2 occasions of Sainz passing Norris. Obviously, there's one into turn 3, and then there was one down the hill into turn, is it technically 4 or 5? 4, I think it's 4. But yeah, both times, really nice move, but especially the one round the outside. You need someone you trust to do that.
Definitely.
It was great racing. Now into some non-Ferrari questions, you'll be pleased to know. This one's from About Andreas. What needs to be done to improve the track limits in Austria? Oh, God. I feel like this is an age-old question. Every year, something is wrong with track limits in Austria. When are we just going to accept that Austria is Austria and we can't put crazy exit curbs up? We can't clearly trust the drivers to stay within track limits, so we just tell them, don't extend. And when they do, they get a penalty. I think, as much as it was a little bit farcical and a little bit like another one, that's because they weren't playing by the rules. I think that's the way I've always said for years, is like, okay, well, if we're saying you're extending, have it as an extending. And then if you do it too many times, you get a penalty. That is exactly what they did. And I don't think there's anything that they should change.
No, because I know it's difficult, and I know this sounds a bit of a theory, and the drivers will disagree. But if this was Monaco and there was a wall there, they're not extending because they know that they can't push the limit. The only reason they push the limits is because they fly into those corners really quick. They're very flat curbs, and yes, they're borderline, but they drive. They don't even drive so they're in the track. They drive so there's one wheel on the track. Do you know what I mean? Like they're trying to extend as much as they can, and then sometimes they get bit. But if there was gravel or a wall all the way to the track edge, they're not flying into that corner every time because, you telling me that who was it that went, I think it was Yuki, wasn't it, that went seven track extends. Hamilton did it very early as well. Magnussen,
he got a penalty within the first 17 laps, I think it was. It was crazy.
Like, are you telling me that if there was gravel right to the extent of the track, Lewis Hamilton would have gone off and gone into the gravel 3 or 4 times? Absolutely
He wouldn't have
not.
been coming over the radio saying, my car doesn't turn, because he'd be in the gravel and it'd be out the race. So
yeah. Or you slow down into the corner more and you just have to sacrifice your lap time. But if there's runoff there, it's always gonna happen. And like you say, we'll have this question every year. They've just extended the race until 2030. So look forward to this question for the next the next few years. That was completely accidental. But
that's what the drivers said as well when they were extending. Oh, I didn't mean to.
No.
To be fair, it was very marginal. Like, I get how people are like, wow, Carlos got a penalty for that. But that's like saying if the ball goes over the line, but only by 1 millimeter, that it would or wouldn't be a goal. Obviously, it's clear cut, right? If you do it, you get a penalty after 4 warnings. Like it is enough of a warning in order to not do it again. But they try not to leave any time on the table.
And there's I know there's a lot of penalties and more, and it was kind of a bit farcical because we don't normally see. Was it 6 drivers? Maybe more. Say 6, something like that. 6 or 7 drivers, but then at the same time, there's 13 drivers that have managed to not do it and stay on the track the whole time. So when you actually look at it that way, it's not like you have some penalties sometimes that you're in Formula One where, say every driver did something, you'd be like, well, this is a bit sus because every driver's done it. But if some manage not to do it, they're obviously, it is possible because 13, 12, whatever drivers did actually do it. So yeah, just stay on the track, I guess.
Verstappen managed it, and he won by, only 5 seconds. We're closing the gap. We're closing the gap. It's only 5 seconds to a Ferrari. Yep.
Although interesting, as we speak, Aston Martin have actually protested the result of the race because they believe that Norris should have a penalty, and they believe that the track limits weren't being policed properly, and that they should, because they're announcing it like 10 minutes later. They've obviously got this VAR style thing, but there's no clear cut beeping as they go across the line. They're just kind of watching screenshots and going, oh yeah, that looks like it and stuff. So I don't know.
I was about to say, so you're telling me there's a chance that Ferrari could look back at Verstappen's onboards and protest. However, the problem is we're going to need to find 6 warnings because he won by 5.1 seconds and we only get 5-second penalties.
I'm sure if you go on some Team LH Twitter account, they'll have 6 screenshots for you.
I'll go and make it.
Yeah, you'll make it. You'll Photoshop.
I'll Photoshop him off the track. And then... Okay, next question. Keys_Cornelis. Does this show that F1 doesn't need more street circuits, but more normal circuits? The racing today was great, yesterday as well, and Silverstone next week is sure to be great as well, like last year. I don't think we've ever been saying that we need more street circuits, to be honest with you. I think that obviously that's the way in which Formula One is going because they're trying to take it to big hotspots, the Las Vegases. They're trying to create a massive show out of it. This isn't just a sport in a lot of ways, as we all know, with how much drama we've had over the last few years. But it is very much a case of, we know as Formula One fans, deep down, normal circuits are better for racing. Street circuits, what are they going to... Baku's not been great for years now.
No, it hasn't.
Has it? It had 2 crazy races. Apart from that, it's been pretty stinkery. Monaco is Monaco. We accept it. We love it. We went there. We were wined and dined. So now we love Monaco until the very bitter end. But yeah, overall, we've always been saying, haven't we, Tommy? Purpose-built circuits are the way to go. And Austria proves that. It doesn't necessarily mean every purpose-built circuit is great. There are some absolute stinkers out there as well that aren't street circuits, but they're usually better. Yeah,
exactly. And the problem is with all Formula One races, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, but there is something in that, some tracks are better than others. And I do think Austria is a very good track. It's very unique as well. Maybe another argument is that, and this is the kind of thing that I always go on about when I'm defending Monaco, but it kind of extends to something like Austria as well, that not every circuit needs to be a 1 minute 30 lap time where there's 20 to 23 turns and you have a fast first sector, slow middle sector, and a medium speed third sector or whatever. Like, build some circuits that... Exactly, but some circuits that are unique and interesting, and Austria, minus the kind of dodgy track limits, is such a unique circuit that, it throws up some interesting racing and battles and stuff. And hey, Max Verstappen didn't lead every lap, so clearly it's the biggest leveler of the of the season as well. But joking aside, yeah, I like Austria a lot. It's a good a good track and shows that let's have a bit of variety on the calendar.
Exactly. I think variety is key. We can't be going to 23 street circuits, although I'm sure Formula One would love to at some point, because that's where the cash money lies. Next question, at Chucks27. Could McLaren be best of the rest with both cars with upgrades after Ferrari and maybe Mercedes? I mean, how I see best of the rest is after Red Bull these days. So it's difficult to judge. But again, it's also difficult to judge McLaren at this stage, isn't it? Because Piastri had a horrendous race and also didn't have the upgrades. And Norris, I think, even said leading up into the weekend, or maybe it was after the sprint, that you can't really tell at the moment where McLaren are, because Austria is as we've been saying, a unique circuit. So Silverstone will probably be a good test bed for the McLaren, and whether or not they'll be good as we move forward. But it's hard to say. But I think if Lando, Austria aside, is able to bring these performances, then we know Lando will get the most out of that car 9 times out of 10. It's just not having a dog like they seem to bring out every time the season starts.
Yeah, no, they don't start the season very well, and not to burst the bubble of some McLaren fans that are probably very pleased with how that race has gone and the upgrades, but let's just wait for another race, because Lando is the absolute go to Austria. Like, he's so good there. Certain drivers do just have certain tracks where they just seem really, really good at. And every year, Lando seems to deliver at Austria, even if the wherever the McLaren is, he manages to just mix it up with the top teams, even if McLaren are nowhere or actually having a good season. So Lando's really good around Austria, and he had the upgrades, so let's just wait for a more normal track. They need to string it together for a few races. I can't remember which podcast it was, but after 4 or 5 races, we were chatting, weren't we, and saying that Lando's got, I think, 3 races in the points, and then 4 races he's managed to finish 16th. And that just really sums up McLaren, that every time you think they're getting better, and it's like, oh, actually, Lando did really good this race. And then the next race, he has an absolute stinker. So hopefully Mick Häkkinen's right, and they're really good and going to challenge Red Bull, because someone needs to.
Come on, Mika. He is the oracle. So maybe he'll finally get back in the cockpit to...
yes, please.
That'd be one way, isn't it? Yeah, one way to do that. So yeah, there you go. Thank you for that question, Keys. As we now... Oh, actually, that was Chuck, sorry. As we now move to another one, Andre Sommers. Where did Aston Martin go? What happened to their competitiveness? It just seems that that's sort of a running trend at the moment, where just occasionally the Aston won't be very good. Just some weekends, not many, but some, that they're just a little bit washed at. Spain, they weren't great. Here, they weren't great. It just seems that they're lacking that raw speed. And as soon as they get sort of swallowed by the pack, they just get stuck there, I would say. Like, if Alonso can stick it on the front row of the grid, we can fully expect him to probably be on the podium, because there is that natural speed there as well. But yeah, if Alonso's starting 6th, 7th, 8th or whatever, it just seems like there's not a huge amount of progression moving forward.
Yeah, I don't think it really suited Aston Martin this year. But then again, you know, particularly in the sprint and I guess qualifying as well, you know, Stroll was on Alonso's pace, but they just, unfortunately for them, they just didn't seem to have that pace that they did, that has allowed Alonso to put it P2. And I think it is constantly changing between Mercedes, Ferrari and Aston Martin, who is that best of the rest, like you said, that probably is now anyone but Red Bull. And the uniqueness, again, to mention it again, of this circuit just didn't suit Aston Martin. You know, when they speak to Fernando Alonso and go, what tracks do you reckon you could win at? He says Monaco, Hungary, Singapore, those low speed, slow corners. And this is absolutely not that. There's a lot of long straights. So it's probably the exact opposite. So I think, to be fair, Fernando, actually, the result he did is quite good damage limitation, because they looked so far off compared to what they normally are.
Absolutely. And again, same with Mercedes, really. Like we thought they were on the resurgence, and they were nowhere. The race pace in particular was shocking. So
yeah, I don't know. To say that people were gassing them up, like you kept mentioning that people are going, oh, the Mercedes race pace is really good. And it was nowhere. I mean, there's not a question about it. No one actually mentioned really Mercedes and stuff, but Hamilton was absolutely fuming at the start of the race of how his car was. Maybe he was expecting a lot more from the package this weekend, but just really nowhere. They were nowhere in quali for the sprint, and then equally just a bit sort of average. They were all right, but they just weren't. Well, you know, we always have that joke of like, are Mercedes back? But this race, they just kind of settled for solid points.
Yeah, and couldn't get any more than that, really, which is not ideal, I think, for Mercedes when you've got other Mercedes engine running cars finishing ahead of them. That's not a good look, is it? If you're the works team. So yeah, let's move on to the next question, which is from Austin Lemieux. How do you feel about Max taking a point away from Checo at the end? Fair play or not a team player? I don't know what sort of narrative we're trying to build here, Austin, but I am of the opinion that I'm sure Max, well, he knew that he didn't own fastest lap probably, and he's probably put two and two together and either worked it out himself or asked the team, who's got fastest lap? What is it? The moment Perez's name is uttered or he's figured it out, he's got flashbacks to that sprint race, being slightly pushed onto the grass, and he's like, give me those soft tyres right now. Give me those soft tyres.
But I don't care if I lose to Leclerc.
Yeah, I mean, it had Leclerc at Spa when he pit for fresh tyres to take fastest lap and then lost the position to Alonso. Do you remember?
Yeah,
that was great. But yeah, it had the hallmarks of that. But I was of course praying for it because Charles Leclerc would have been the one to benefit it. And at one point, he was 2 seconds behind Max as Max was charging his energy up before he went and set the fastest lap by 3 light years. But no, there's nothing not fair play about Max going in, getting new tyres and setting fastest lap. If anything, it shows a confidence within him. It shows his champion mentality. Just that entire working outfit is clearly, you know, fluid, and there's confidence everywhere because, yeah, and I guess as well, Max knows that the title's wrapped up. So there's plenty of, you know, just comfort, relaxation. Yeah, I'll come into the pits. How many seconds have I got extra? It's fine. Dodgy wheel nut, whatever. Leclerc can have it. Like, it's just all very easy breezy at the moment.
Does that just sum up how, the confidence of Red Bull, Max, the working partnership of that, and then you mentioned that Leclerc pit stop. Was it last year at Spa? I think it was, wasn't it? Where, he comes in for softs. I think he, if I'm not mistaken, he kind of went, this is a bit risky, isn't it? Because we might lose a place. And he said, no, come in. We're going to get the fastest lap. And messed it up and lost the place, and that changed that.
Oh, that was
Max.
it. Yeah, he came into the pits, he lost the place, got the place back, but sped in the pit lane.
Yeah, sped in the pit lane,
and then lost the position.
Of course,
yeah. Oh no, why did I bring that up?
but that sums up, you know, the other side where you've got Max, who's so confident, so trusting in his team, his own ability. You know, even if there is a bit of a slow pit stop and I have to, you know, pull 2 seconds on Leclerc in the last lap and pass him. Like, he is just driving like, you know, it's the kind of thing you do on the F1 game where there's no consequences, and you can do a flashback if it goes wrong or something. This is in a Formula One Grand Prix that he's got the audacity to do that. It just shows the confidence level that you did a tweet about it, that it's like he's playing the game on 0% AI, and it's just so easy. And then also the fact that, like you say about Perez, Max Verstappen has built his aura, and it's something a lot of people don't like. It's something that Michael Schumacher was so good at as well, that was just, I will not give you an inch, like, anywhere. Like, you will never beat me. This is, you know, everything is perfect. Like, I will not give you the fastest lap in a race even. And that's exactly what someone like Michael Schumacher did and made. And it's very similar that people don't race him the same way because they know it's like pointless in a way. And people complain about it, but they know that when he's driving this car and the form that he's in, he's not going to be beaten. And he's just building that. And it's something he's done throughout his whole career. And it's something a lot of people don't like, but it's just, that's why he's so good, because he just does it. It's not a charity. He's not there to give Perez an extra point. Dare I say that Max is more of a Fernando Alonso fanboy than I am, and probably would like Alonso to finish second in the title because he loves him. But he's not there to give a charity point to Perez. He's there to do his own race.
No, drivers like Schumacher, like Verstappen, they are greats for a reason. They're selfish, and they don't care if someone watching the television doesn't like them. They could not give two tosses about that.
No, blah, blah, blah. 385 said on Twitter that
I'll cry into my first place trophy that I've now got 42 of, or however many he's got now. Exactly. He doesn't care, and that's the beauty of it. As soon as you care about what people think of you, that's when you get sort of hindered, especially in the world of motorsport, and probably in life as well. Hey, just live your life, right? Let's go to biggest winner. Why don't you go first, Tommy?
I am going to go with Ferrari because I think it was a great, got a lot of points on their rivals of Mercedes and Aston Martin, closed up in that championship that they've been lagging behind a little bit. Positive, despite, talking about, maybe they should have done this, maybe they should have done that. They were very quick, were unfortunate the way that the safety car panned out, that it would screw one of their drivers, but both drivers driving, very well in the race, bagging a lot of points, and well done, Ferrari.
Well done, Ferrari. We'll take that. Absolutely lock it in. My biggest winner is Lando Norris. I think he absolutely deserves a shout out from this weekend. Of course, the sprint race didn't go to plan, but his qualifying was mega. The fact that he was qualifying in the top 5 and still not happy with that is quite something, and just shows the level of confidence that he has around Austria. Fingers crossed for McLaren fans that this is not just a one-off, and that it's not just Lando's special track, and we've got more to come, because McLaren deserves to be up there fighting for the top position. So well done, Lando Norris. Now we go to biggest loser, Haas. Oh my God. How is Hülkenberg throwing this car to what was, I guess, P2 in Canada before the penalty, P4 as well? He just stuck it this weekend. And Hülkenberg didn't finish. Magnussen didn't finish. Did he finish?
No, he was dead last.
No, he did finish.
Dead last.
He was completely dead. Oh, he was on a used set of hards. Shocking. Absolutely horrendous.
Yeah. I would have picked Haas as well. If I have to go someone different,
Piastri, Tsunoda.
It's Haas on Piastri because he was.
So you got to pick your boy Tsunoda. Then.
Yeah, I think Tsunoda's had a bit of a shocker.
Now, we got Verstappen with the 0% AI having a great time chilling, playing the F1 game. Tsunoda was playing the F1 game, but it was a sprint lobby, 3 laps. At the beginning of that race, he lost part of his front wing and then was like, no, more yeeting required. Yeets it into turn 3, then yeets himself off at turn 4 into the gravel. That was the old Yuki. The one that it was less
a bit
mature,
excitable,
relaxed. Like it was a bit too aggressive.
He looked like he was playing on 0% AI, the way that everyone was braking really early and they're trying to get around the outside of everyone. But he just got, maybe that was in his head. He was like, oh my God, F1 is so easy. I'm just going around the outside of everyone, and then just slams it into the gravel and loses his front wing and all sorts. And then got 7 track extensions as well. Yuki had a shocker. So thanks for mentioning that. So I think
I'm
you're right.
So sorry. A bit of pain for Tom Bellingham, the Verstappen fan. Oh, wow. Right. Let's move to our predictions that we made on Wednesday to see how we did. And to be honest with you, some pretty good predictions right here. I'm not going to lie to you. Okay, so biggest good surprise, I went for Charles Leclerc. Get in, plus 1 point. Thank you very much. Put that in the bank for where I would have got more points for sprint pole position, and sprint winner had I been boring like Tommy. But no, I have not. So we'll take that point. Tommy.
I've gone for Carlos Sainz.
No.
Absolutely. No.
No. We spoke about this in the watch-along. We said a podium.
No, we did not say that in the podcast.
Backed me.
No, they didn't. A few people did. But
yes, we did. I said they need to be on the podium, and you went, yeah.
I didn't say... I said that I put him on the podium because I was like, that's where I think he could get. But we don't have these terms and conditions. And if we really want to go into terms and conditions, I did a bit of research on Twitter, actually. And I did a poll and said, for P1 podcast research purposes, which Ferrari driver was better during the Austrian Grand Prix weekend? And Sainz got 70%. Absolutely. Thank you very much.
No,
big surprise.
No, that's not. Yeah, better, but not a better result. Thank you very much.
Well, actually, they got the same result.
But I don't care.
Thank you very much. Look, that's a good...
5-second penalty.
They were the same. They were literally nothing separating them. If anything, Sainz was better because he owned him in the sprint. So here we go.
Oh, so now the sprint means more than the real race, Tommy, yeah?
Look,
okay,
we've always said this.
Okay, well, look, I wouldn't aggressively attack you this much if you didn't pick Verstappen for everything else. You know what I mean? Like, I would be like, no, half a point.
No, well, I'm taking 1 point. Look, trust me, because if I get the point, it's going to be a bit closer in the championship. And look, we've got a
right, Michael
FIA
Massey,
2021.
What's going on here?
It's the only championship fight we're going to get this year. So
how are you not close to me? You picked Verstappen for everything.
Because I'm washed everything else.
You are. Okay, fine, whatever. I mean, look, we'll see what people say in the comments.
You can't not say that Sainz was a good surprise. He
was very good in the race. Well done. Finished fourth, but the terms and conditions were top three. Biggest flop. I went for Esteban Ocon, which is definitely floppy. He finished between two Williamses, got beaten by his teammate. It's floppy. Thank you very much. Plus 1 point.
Go on then, I'll allow it. And biggest flop, this actually came true in the end. Nico Hülkenberg, when I actually thought it was going to have the opposite effect and we're going to see Nico Hülkenberg being an absolute goat, which he was, but then remembered that he was driving a Haas.
Listen to me right now. If you're taking so much from the sprint, then I am taking the fact that he scored 3 whole points in the sprint. That's not floppy for a Haas. That's not floppy.
You finished last.
No.
Dead last in the race.
No.
Ocon got a point in the sprint, so you don't get a point either. Perfect.
No, Ocon should get a point in an Alpine. This is a Haas and Hülkenberg. Right, this is where I think people will back me on this one.
I think we need to we need some kind of like a poll. Maybe we start doing Twitter polls for like, is this a point? Is this a point?
Yeah,
maybe. Every single one.
Maybe we start doing that. But I don't think Hulk's a flop because of the sprint. If he hadn't, it was unbelievable in the sprint and scored points. You can't. Don't you dare.
The sprint doesn't matter.
You've got 2 points coming up. So just 0 points this one. Thank you very much. You did not know. Nico is not a flop. I'm not allowing it. Pole position. I went for Alonso. 0 points. Shut up. Tommy, what did you go for? Let me guess.
Verstappen. Easy.
Boring. Plus 1. No, half a point. Just because you went for Verstappen. Okay, a point. Well done. Sprint pole. I went for Alonso. No, don't care. Tommy, you went for Verstappen. Boring. Well done. Another point. Sprint winner. I went for Alonso. Boring. And then you actually didn't go boring and you didn't score a point. So I know what you'll go next time.
Yeah. I went for Perez, which I got the theory of that he'd pass Max on the first corner. And then I forgot that it's Max Verstappen and everything I just said about him being ruthless and not
I know, you're always going to be so nice and give Perez the win. Good joke. Okay, we now go to our top 3. In third place, I went for Charles Leclerc, which is incorrect. Tommy, you went for
Sainz, incorrect.
Second, I went for Alonso, incorrect.
I went for Perez, which was also incorrect.
And then we both went for Verstappen top, so 1 point for us both there. Well done. And our one crazy prediction. Come on, both of us. Wait.
Ah, dear. We almost made it through a podcast.
I went for Alex Albon makes Q3. And yes, he did by the skin of his teeth.
He did.
What a prediction that is. No loopholes, just beautiful predictions.
No loopholes.
Over to you, Tommy.
Max won't lead the lap, during lap.
The way you've written this down says Max
I've written
won't
it down
lead a
but
lap.
the way I explained it was fine in the podcast.
Ref, Your Honour.
VAR.
On our podcast sheet, it says Max won't lead a lap, and he won the race, so that's 0 points.
Well, technically, if we're going to go with that, in this sheet it says Tommy's top 3, Verstappen, Perez, Sainz, and that was the order of the sprint. So 3 points.
Okay, we're getting very. People are going to need to see this sheet, aren't they?
People
really?
that do their own spreadsheets are going to get very confused of who's actually got points. So
yeah,
look, we both got a point for a crazy prediction.
Yeah, well done. Good job. Okay, right. I think this podcast is going off the rails. So that's the point where we will end. We'll be doing our F1 to 10 driver ratings as a podcast tomorrow. So be sure to check that out. And of course, we have lots more content coming your way. And we have Silverstone where we'll be at. So we've got lots of content. Promise you, it's going to be coming out of our ears and into your eyes and ears. Waffle things. Tommy, what's your final thoughts?
My final thoughts are, yes, Silverstone is going to be absolute banger. And it's going to be the best race of the year as well. And it's going to be exciting.
It certainly is. And if you're going to Silverstone, if you're going to the British Grand Prix, please come and say hello to us if you see us. We love to speak to each and every one of you because it's our favourite weekend of the year. We're also going to be live on the main stage at 11:30 in the morning on the Sunday. So please come and have a watch if you're there. But yeah, we actually might be, I think we're going to be able to record it. So you might actually be able to hear what we talk about, even though a lot of it might not have any sense because it'll be us talking prior race, before the race. Yeah. But hey, look, I think a lot of you enjoy the fact that we're doing things outside. The Austrian Grand Prix result has changed. That's right, the track limit saga that we had throughout the entire race did not end at the checkered flag. So according to the FIA, over 1,200 instances of track limit violations were reported. 1,200! Sainz has a 10-second penalty, Hamilton has a 10-second penalty, so does Gasly, so does Albon, Ocon 30 seconds worth of penalties, Logan Sargent 10 seconds worth of penalties, Nick de Vries 15, and Yuki Tsunoda another 5. This means the top 10 is now as follows: Verstappen, Leclerc, Perez, Norris, Alonso, Sainz, Russell, Hamilton, Stroll, and Gasly. What do you make to all of this track limit craziness? Let us know in the comments.